Hello, welcome and namaste everybody in this our family reunion of Universal Human Values Follow Module 1 of Student Induction Program. We have our resource person and co-explorer Arjun Bhaiya also with us. Arjun Bhaiya, namaste.
Namaste, Bhaiya.
Namaste, namaste. Over to you, Arjun Bhaiya. Welcome, namaste.
Namaste. So, good evening, everyone. In today's session, we'll talk about existence. Last time we had talked about nature, harmony in nature. So, just expanding our view, we can see that we are all embedded in this existence. So, we'll explore that today. There's one hand raised. If you want to say something, you can go ahead. So we have seen that our basic aspiration is for continuous happiness and prosperity, and happiness is to be in harmony. And now we have seen that the program for would be by way of understanding harmony and living in harmony at all the four levels. So in this discussion, we are exploring each part of it and then seeing the relationship between different things. So we have seen harmony in the human being, harmony in the family, harmony in society, harmony in nature. And now we'll talk about existence and see that existence is what is like kind of binding everything together or thing together, and all the units are in existence and are in um, kind of a coexistence, and there's an interconnection between all of them. There's a specific relationship between all of them. So we'll just go over that also. And again, this will also be by the process of self-exploration. So the same way that we verify on the basis of our natural acceptance, and then accordingly we make some conclusion out of it, or we leave it open if we are not sure about it, but we verify on the basis of our natural acceptance. Now, when we look at the harmony in existence, first of all, like we can look at what existence means to us, what we mean by. So when we talk about nature, you can see nature around you. You know that this is nature, and in fact, human beings are also part of nature. So what is existence then? So we'll talk about that. What is existence? Basically, whatever we see, um, like human beings, families, society, nature, all these things, what we are seeing is embedded in this existence. And this existence is in the form of coexistence, which means that there are different units which are submerged in this existence, and they're all related to each other, coexisting, and all the processes also which are happening. So we'll explore this in a little more detail now. That when we are saying existence, we're talking about units which are submerged in space. So what we mean by units, there are two kinds of units: material units and consciousness units. Material units, example is anything which is of material nature, like metal or rock or stone, or even the human being. The part of the human being which is material is the body, and the part of the human being which is um, not material is a consciousness unit, but that's also termed as a unit. So existence is a collection of all these different units submerged in space. By space, we're not talking about the outer space only, like the planets and stars and that part, but we are talking about what is holding all these things together, or what is where they are embedded, where they are submerged. So, for example, there is air around us, and the units are of limited size, but they are present in a unlimited space. So if you can see that, that means like any unit which we see, like we see stone, we see our human body, we see all kinds of units, we see plants and animals, we see all these units, and we see that there's a gap from one unit to the other unit. So what is that gap? If we see, that is space. And space is inside the unit also, it's outside the unit also. Like when we look at atoms, then there is space inside also, there's space outside also. There's electrons, protons, they're all revolving around the atom, and there is space inside also and outside also. So everywhere there is space. Wherever the unit is there, that is limited in size, and wherever the unit is not there, that is all space. Expanse of uh, not just area, but we can say space. We'll go in more detail also now. But you can see that, like when you look at the earth itself, then you see that when you look up in the sky, then you don't see any limit to where it ends and what happens after that. So it's like unlimited. This galaxy is there, then there's another galaxy, then there's another galaxy. So like that, the space is unlimited. And when we look at the units, there is some activity happening in the unit. In every unit, there is some activity. But in the space, there is no activity. The space is holding everything together, but there's no activity happening over there. But when we see the units, then we see that there's some or the other activity happening in every unit. Like in nature, when we see the rocks and the stones and the trees and everything, there is some or the other activity happening. Like in the trees, the activity would be of growth. In the stones, the activity would be of recognizing and fulfilling only. Also plus growth also. So like that, you can see that every unit would have some or the other activity happening. But in the space, you see that there is no activity happening, but the units are submerged in this space. Next, we also see that the units are energized in space. Like we see the sun, the moon, they're all units, and they're energized in the space. So like if you ask where the energy comes from, then in the beginning you might give some answer. Like if you say, like, where does the sun get energy from, if you ask, then you might say something like it gets from the hydrogen or the helium or some activity happening over there. But then next, when you go deeper and deeper, when you ask where does the hydrogen get the energy from, then you say some atoms, something, it happens. some fusion or fission or something happens. Then when you ask why does that happen, where does that get its energy from? So as you keep going deeper and seeing, then you realize that you don't have an answer for it. And that is because it's energized by the virtue of the space. Energy is energized in space. Everything which is there in this space has a characteristic of being energized just because it is present in the space. Like the trees also, they're energized in space. The human being also is energized in space. Every unit is energized in the space. And there is no unit outside of this space, right? Because the space is kind of unlimited, and all the units are submerged in that space. So because of that, you can see that every unit is energized because it is there in that space. So there's no unit which can be outside of this space, right? Like everything is um, submerged in the space. And second, we can see that all the units are self-organized in space, which means that whatever they're doing, whatever activity they're doing, whatever is happening in the unit, that is going on its own. It's happening on its own independently. Like the sun or the moon or the plant or the stone or whatever, the human being also, we can say that there is some activity happening, right? And that activity, there is a self-organization. Like in the body, if you see, the digestive system is working on its own. We're not doing anything to make it work. It is working on its own. The breathing system is working on its own. And then when you look at the sun and the solar system, you can see that the earth revolves around, and the moon is also revolving around, and all the planets are revolving around the sun. So like that, all this is happening in a particular manner, and everything is organized, everything is self-organized. Means it's happening on its own in a particular way with a lot of precision, but you don't have to do anything for making that happen, because just presence itself makes everything self-organized. And third is that the units recognize their relationship with every other unit in the space. So like if the planets are going around the sun, then every planet can recognize every other planet, and they can recognize their relationship with every other planet, with the air, with the soil, with everything. And accordingly, they will fulfill their relationship with every other unit. So they're able to recognize their role in this coexistence. They're able to recognize what their participation would be so that the system works and is in harmony. So if there's any questions so far till here, then you can ask, because we didn't talk about this earlier, I think. So if there's any question or comment, then you can ask on the mic. Some hands are raised. You can talk. It is unmuted, I think.
हेलो
हेलो, गुड इवनिंग।
हाँ गुड इवनिंग। नमस्ते भैया, नमस्ते सभी को।
नमस्ते।
मुझे एक प्रश्न ऐसा है कि स्पेस हम अवकाश कहते हैं, तो यह शून्य क्यों कहा गया है?
Akash, if you see Akash, we call Shunya, we are saying because there is no activity. There is zero activity.
Okay.
In the units, we can clearly see that all the units have some or the other activity which is constantly going on. But in the space, we see that there is no activity. So in that way, we say there is zero activity or shunya.
Okay, okay, जी भैया, thank you.
Any other clarification or question about this thing?
Arjun, I have a question. These units means all living things and non-living things, no? And the sun, moon, etc. Everything is an example for units.
Yes.
So how do they get energy that energized?
That is a characteristic of the space, that whatever is there in the space gets energized in space.
Okay.
So now why that happens, we can't say.
See, okay.
We don't know. But like we can see that with science also, when we ask this question, when we keep going to the root deeper and deeper, then at the end in science also there is no answer to that.
So, okay.
So here also we are saying that there is an answer, but then we can't really see it directly until we experience it. So we can take it as a proposal that the units are energized in space by virtue of the space. So whatever is there in the space gets energized in the space. The other two characteristics are also there, that everything in the space is self-organized in space. That means all the units are working in a particular way with each other. They're recognizing their relationship with each other and fulfilling that relationship, so that with every other unit they are in harmony and they are fulfilling they are kind of playing their part in that coexistence. They are doing their function, or they're playing their part in the coexistence.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So it's like how there are man-made systems also. Like this is a natural system which is in perfect sync with each other, which is in perfect harmony. And by virtue of being in the space, all this is happening. So we are all embedded in this space. We are submerged in the space. And because of that, we are energized, we are self-organized, and we can recognize our relationship with every other unit in the space. So now when we look at the units, the characteristics of the units are that they are limited in size, they have some activity, or they are active, we can say. Then they are self-organized, and they are energized, and they recognize their relationship and fulfill their relationship with every other unit. And when we look at the types of these units, they are material units and consciousness units. So what we call living and non-living, that when we see a little bit deeper, then we see that everything is living actually, because even the things which we are calling non-living are also part of the material order, and they also have the characteristic of recognizing and fulfilling. So therefore, um, okay, I mean, we can call it anything, it doesn't matter right now.
But that comes in the physical order, no? That is the only thing.
Yeah. So material means everything which is physical.
But that can recognize and fulfill, okay.
Yeah, like even if it is something like what we are calling non-living, like if it's a table or a chair, it's made of wood, something like that also, then it still recognizes and fulfills according to the stimulus or the input which is given. It may not react in a way that the plant reacts, like it may not move towards the sun when the sunlight comes or something, but it still recognizes and fulfills based on what is done to it. Like, for example, if you drop some some hot liquid on on the table, then some stain will come maybe. But if you drop some little bit of water, then it just goes in a little bit, and you have a different characteristic for everything which is coming on it.
Okay.
So whatever is happening to it, whatever we are doing to it, it's able to recognize and fulfill, as in it's able to um, whatever is supposed to happen, it happens according to that. So like if we try to cut it with the saw, then it will get cut depending on how hard the wood is. So in that way, we can see that there's a definite recognition and fulfillment. It's not like one day you try with the saw, it'll get cut, and the next day it won't get cut. That won't happen. It might be harder or softer depending on the how hard the wood is and the whether the wood is wet or dry. All those might matter. But what I'm saying is that the recognition and fulfillment is definite. So if the wood is a certain way, then it would take a certain amount of effort to cut it. If the stone is a certain way, it would take a certain amount of effort to cut it. So that cannot be changed because that's a definite thing. And that is the characteristic with all these material units, that it does it in a definite manner. Like if you look at the body also, the body is a material unit, not the self, the body. The human being is coexistence of self and body. So when we look at the body part as a material unit, then we can see that the breathing process is definite and the digestion process is definite. And similarly, all the processes happening in the human body part of the human being, those are all definite. So the body also recognizes and fulfills accordingly. Like if you feed the body with some healthy food, then there's a positive impact on the body. If you feed it with negative, like not such a healthy diet, then there's a negative impact on the body, because the body just recognizes and fulfills whatever input is coming. Like suppose some poison is fed to the body, then the body will have a severe problem, because the body is recognizing it as something which is very harmful, and therefore the functioning of the body gets hampered. So in that way, we can see that whatever is given to the body also, it is a definite reaction, or there's a definite kind of a fulfillment according to what the input is. So that is the same for every material unit, that they all have the characteristic of recognizing and fulfilling. But then when we go into the physical order, more and more when we go, we see that they have units, and there is no development which needs to happen in these units, because everything is already self-organized and everything is already in harmony. And now when we look into the bio order, then we see that along with recognizing and fulfilling, when we reach up to the animal body, then we see that there is also a self associated with the animal body. Up till the plant, there is no self, although there is, like the plant has the leaves and all that, it has the response to the stimulus, but it doesn't have the self. But when we go to the animal body and then the human body, we see that in the last two, the animal body and the human body, there is also a self which is associated with that body. So the self is a consciousness unit. That is also a unit in the nature. And the characteristic of that is that it is continuous in time, not like the body, which is temporary, which dies after a certain time. Continuous. And the self has the possibility of knowing, or the potential for knowing. And it also has assuming, recognizing, and fulfilling. So it assumes based on whatever it thinks is right. So this is the characteristic of the self. So you can see the difference between the material units and the consciousness units. But overall, you can see that these are all units in nature. They all have some or the other activity going on. In the self, you can clearly observe the activities of the desire, the thoughts, expectations. All this is happening in the self, which is called imagination also. Altogether, we call this imagination, which is a continuous process. So that is the activity happening in the self. There can be more activities also happening in the self, but largely we see that imagination is predominant. And in the material units also, we see that there are activities happening. Even if it looks like there's no activity, like in the rocks or the stones, it may look like there's no activity, they're just in one place. But still, you can notice that there is some activity going on. And over a period of time, those rocks become soil. And these processes are happening continuously. So this is all part of what happens in the self. These are going on. Even though it may look like there is no activity, there is activity even in the rocks and the soil and all these things. Then when we look at the consciousness, we see that it is continuous in time. That means it keeps going on. There's no gap. And also there's a potential for knowing. And on the basis of knowing, when we set our assumption, then our recognizing and fulfilling also becomes definite. In the animal order, there is no potential for knowing. There is only assuming. In the human order, there is also the potential for knowing. So that is the difference. So when the human order is with the right understanding and right feeling, then there will be definite human conduct. Or in other words, when all the decisions of the human being are taken by referring to the natural acceptance, and then they are in line with the natural acceptance, then they will be in harmony and the human being will be happy, and therefore there will be definite human conduct also. So that would happen if the human order has right understanding and right feeling. If that is not there, then the human order is not in harmony. But we can see that all the other orders are in harmony. The animal order, the bio order, physical order are all in harmony, and they recognize their relationship with every other unit in this coexistence and fulfill it. Your hand raised. You can unmute.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening. With respect to few plants, so there are plants which are reacting and they are recognizing. Can we say that they are also having self, sir?
No, they are. That's what we are mentioning. That they are responding to the stimulus. They are not they don't have the self, but they're responding to the stimulus. Like how we mentioned that when the sun, or when the water is given, then something happens to the roots. The roots take in the water. So all this is the response to the stimulus, and then recognizing and fulfilling accordingly. Even when you have sometimes when you play some kind of music also, which is pleasant, then the plants open up more, the leaves open up more, or the flowers, the buds open up a little bit. So all this is a response to the stimulus, but this is not because of the self. This doesn't mean that it has a self. It just means that it is recognizing and fulfilling according to whatever stimulus is given.
Yeah, yes, sir.
So in the material order, all the units have this characteristic of recognizing and fulfilling. And in the animal order, they have this, plus they have assuming also.
Solomon sir has also raised his hands.
So if we look at this whole coexistence, we see that everything else is already in harmony. Only the human being is not in harmony. And in the human being also, the human body is in harmony. The material part is in harmony. Only the
Hello,
self
sir.
of the human being is not in harmony. Yeah.
Solomon sir, you can ask the
Audible?
question.
Yes. And while referring to this, what differentiates this animal order from human order is that animals don't have ego and humans have ego. Is that statement right? Can we see in that perspective? Is that ego which is differentiating between animal order and human order? Can we say like that?
When we look at the complexity of the human body and the human being also, like the self also, then we can see that there is a lot more development which is there in the human being in terms of the self also, and in terms of the body also, that it is much more sophisticated. It's like a much more sophisticated machine than the animal. But the difference is not only about the ego. The difference is that there is a faculty which is able to distinguish between different things, and being able to reach all the way up to the possibility of knowing. So knowing means the completeness of right understanding. So that potential is there only in the human being. The other orders don't have that potential to reach up to knowing. They only can assume and recognize and fulfill. So the side effect of the human being having this potential is that without being able to see the coexistence, or without the right understanding and right feeling, there would be a lot of side effects. Like one of them is to feel that the human being is separate from everything else. And that is what creates that kind of ego, how you're mentioning, that um, that becomes a problem also, that that ego becomes something which dominates, and then that looks like something which is negative for the human being. And therefore you see many things, like many side effects of lack of right understanding. So one of them could be this ego kind of thing, what you're mentioning. Another thing could be the depression, or the stress, or tension, or anxiety. So all these, there could be numerous of these kind of side effects of the lack of right understanding. But what we're saying is that,
Sir,
yeah,
may I ask one question?
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. May I ask you one question?
Sure.
That is, sir, while conducting this class in our polytechnic, some students asked whether can we say that the animals, like for example, dogs and all, don't they have right understanding and feeling, or is that is that human nature, or is that humans possess the right understanding and right feeling, and animals don't have? Can we say like that?
The animals have the faculty of assuming. So when the human being is nice to the animal, for the like let's say dog for example,
Okay.
every animal also has a different level of how much they're developed in the sense of assuming also. So when we look at animals like dog and horse, and some animals are there like this, which are able to, which have a higher level of this assuming, means they are more developed in the assuming part. So when the human being interacts with them, their faculty of assuming develops even more. The way that they are in nature also, the dog has the faculty of assuming which is quite developed. So therefore when the human being interacts also, then the dog also responds in a certain way, and the assumption about the human being becomes more and more definite. So because of that, they are it seems like they are closer to the human order, right? They are, as those animals are closer to the human order, but you can't say the same for cat maybe, right? Cat is not as close as dog. So like that there'll be different levels of assuming which are happening in the animals depending on how evolved the animal is, and certain animals are more evolved than the others, like dog is more evolved than the cat. So like that it is there.
So, Arjun, I have a question. That means if I am good to, I'm behaving nicely to the dog will behave nice to me. If I'm harming the dog will harm me. That is,
It depends on the assumption. It depends on the assumption that the dog is making.
dog is making. Okay. Whether if the dog assumes that I am harming it, it can attack me.
Yeah.
Okay, but for a human being, even if with the right understanding, even if the other person is good or bad, with the right understanding, I can understand since his competence is low, he is behaving in that way. That is not there in animal.
Yeah, that is not there.
Okay, okay. So only
The animal can do the assuming, and the assuming also, the level of assuming also, it depends from animal to animal.
Mhm.
Like
Okay.
even in the human being, you can see that human being to human being, everybody has a different level of understanding at this moment, if you see. But at the same time, we can say that every human being has the potential for the completeness of right understanding.
Okay. That is not there in the animals.
Yeah. But then over time, as the animal develops, then they develop further and further such that over a period of time, then later on, they may be able to associate with the human body at some point of their evolution.
I didn't get means I didn't get your point.
Like how the human being has evolved from the monkey, they say, right? That the monkey.
Okay. Okay.
So like that,
They also
all
can
these animals also can
get
evolve into
evolved.
the human, get associated with the human body when they are ready for it, when they
Okay.
are reaching that level
Understand. Okay.
of development.
Development. Many have raised hands.
As soon as the human being is coming, then the potential of every human being is the same. That every human being has the potential to reach the completeness of right understanding, but even then, everybody may not be motivated the same way to do the same things, because they would have different assumptions and different, um, based on those assumptions and beliefs and all the preconditioning and all that,
Conditions.
based on all that, they would have a different,
They will be behaving in a different way. Yeah.
yeah,
Because of the competence level is different in different people. So each one will behave in different way.
yeah. But then the potential is there
It's
for all
there
of
on
them.
all the people. Okay.
Yeah. It's not that if somebody is at a lower level of understanding, they can't reach. It's just that they may not have seen yet the significance, or like how we are also exploring through these workshops. So like that, everybody is exploring, may not realize that they're exploring also, but then whatever decisions are being taken, whatever experiences they're gathering, are all being added up, and then there's some kind of learning which is happening. So with that, there's a constant learning in every lifetime, and therefore there is a possibility to evolve as we keep going. So if we want to evolve faster, then if we work on developing the right understanding and right feeling, then that will help us to reach that completeness stage faster. So we all have the same potential. It all depends on how much effort we want to put into it, or how much interest we have in seeing this thing. Because once we see that there is a coexistence and we are part of this coexistence, then it becomes obvious to see that this is our role and this is our purpose to evolve. So the first
Okay.
thing becomes that we want to do this.
Okay. One Srilata ma'am has raised her hands. Ma'am,
Yeah.
you can
Namaste,
ask.
Priyaji. Namaste, Arjun.
Namaste, ma'am.
One question, it was there in back of my mind all the way through. I just want to put it across. This is regarding the competence.
Okay.
Right. Let us assume that both the selves, two human beings, have gone through the UHV sessions. Both are having this right concepts of right understanding and right feeling, fulfilling relationships. So they are interacting with each other. Who has to decide the competence? So if competencies will differ, we will take it for granted that two human beings are same. Right?
A human being, we can't say it's same like that. We can say that the potential is the same.
Potentials are same.
Yeah.
But that feeling of reverence, feeling of gratitude when it comes, so whoever is competent to him, the other, he has to complementarity will come. He has to hold hand of the other person who is less competent, right? Am I right in my expression?
We could say it's mutual, but
Mutual.
also to
No,
see that it's also to see that if the person who has less competence doesn't have.
Who has to decide that less competency? Who has to be complementarity feeling? Who has to help the other person? I know more, I have to help him out. That is one thing. I know less, I have to take the help of the other. Somebody has to. If it is mutual understanding, okay. But when they are with their own side.
Yeah. So if it is not clear, then it's just a matter of evaluating properly. So first, we can evaluate ourselves and see. And also, another important thing to note is that before this helping each other comes, before that, more important to see before that for the other person or for you also is that if there is trust in the relation, only then there is a potential for then there is possibility for this helping each other or mutual development, right? If there's no trust,
One-
if
one-
there's no
one more-
assurance.
Yes. One more doubt is that there this human psychology plays a what you call the role there. The psychology of the person will be different. One will be, let us say, a timid person, or he will accept whatever the other person will tell. Then who will be outspoken and like that.
Yeah, so all those
Superiority complex,
are
inferiority complex.
yeah. So all those are there. That is because of different preconditionings, different assumptions. So naturally that will be there, that there will be a difference from one person to the other. So what I was saying is that first would come the trust. So if there is the trust, then this thing becomes very easy to figure out who to help and all that, because then there is a kind of a assurance in the relationship. So then each person in that relationship is able to see that the other wants to make me happy, right? So when each of the people are able to see this and they're able to rightly evaluate themselves and the other, then by mutual discussion itself, it will become clear about who helps the other and all that. And also, it won't be only in one dimension that one person helps the other. It can be mutual, right? Because it can be both helping each other also to develop the understanding.
Yes, the self is so complex that the preconditioning in the form of the psychology, that psychology may come from the genes, or it may be acquired over the period out of the grown environment where the self has grown, the family environment or the societal environment. So they would have acquired that psychology, as I told you, through genes or through the circumstance. So that plays a havoc in understanding these things, and the trust, the complementarity, and all those things. So that is where I think the human order is having much difficulties in having a normal life.
Yeah, so here in this thing about trust, if we try to solve this issue of helping each other or growing our mutual development kind of with the right, trying to help each other to develop our understanding, then it becomes very, very difficult when there is the lack of trust. Because when there is the lack of trust, then suppose between me and you there is no trust, then you also don't have the thing that I can help you. You don't have the confidence that I can help you and I want to make you happy. And I also don't have the confidence in me that I can take help from the other, from you. And I also don't know if you can make me happy or not. I have doubt on that. So because of all this, I have doubt on your intention also, your competence also. You also have doubt on my intention and my competence. Then it becomes very difficult to make any program, right? It becomes very difficult to have any kind of a conversation, because I mean, not conversation, but any kind of development will because if you don't feel that I can help you, then you're not open to even taking that input from the other. So this is what happens when there is no trust, or when there is a doubt on the intention.
No. The one more thing I wanted to raise is the life is so busy that they will not get time to sit and talk and resolve the issues. So from one task to another task, from the moment we get up from the bed and the moment we go to sleep, the tasks will be so interconnected. From one task to another task, we will be jumping, and the misunderstandings will keep on piling up. So we don't have the time to sit and reconcile these misunderstandings. So that pile-up will happen, and accumulation of the assumptions, all these things will come. So that is where one more angle
Because
to.
we are kind of, how you're saying that we are busy with our tasks.
Yes,
We're
yes,
also
yes, yes.
maybe not aware of what we are doing also, right? We're not aware of.
Yes. Where we are hurting the other person, where other person will not know that they are hurting us. So this unknown travel goes on, and we will pile up with those things, and somewhere that strain in the relationships will happen.
Yeah, so then again it comes back to the harmony in the self, that we are not able to maintain the harmony within ourselves also, right? And therefore in the relation also it shows up as a problem, because there is conflict within ourselves, and
it requires a lot of introspection and self-exploration. Otherwise,
it is not a very difficult thing as we keep.
That becomes a backlog, and the bag of heavy feelings will be increasing.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be so difficult if we just focus on ourselves, focus on inside. Then we are able to, at least to start with, at least our actions will be definite. To start with, we can make our actions definite. That will happen when our thoughts are in line with our natural acceptance. And suppose we get some thoughts which are in conflict also, then if we are aware of those thoughts, then at least they won't show in our action. That can be the first step. And then as we keep exploring and keep trying to develop that awareness inside us, then we will reach a stage where at our thoughts level also everything is harmonious, and we have very little of those conflicting thoughts. And therefore outside also it doesn't show much, and inside also it becomes much more comfortable. So that is possible.
That purification should start at the self level, but understanding and sitting and working out is again this thing. Very nice talking to you. I was able to get so many clarifications from the conversation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. So it is possible that it takes time. It is possible that it is a slow process, or it is a little bit difficult to start with. But as you keep going on this path, you realize that it is not that difficult to get started and to start seeing what you're thinking, start seeing your feelings.
Starting trouble. When once it gets into the track, I think things will move at a faster rate, I hope.
Yeah. Once you start seeing your thoughts, like just observing your thoughts, then you realize why you're feeling the way you're feeling. Like suppose you're feeling sad on some particular day, or suppose you're feeling tension on some particular day. Then many times when we are not aware of it, then we don't even know that we are feeling sad, or we don't even know that we are feeling tension, but we're just unhappy within. And so the first step is to just observe what is happening inside, and then try to relate that with our feelings and thoughts. That will be because of some or the other situation, or some or the other thing which was unresolved, or something which we didn't like, or something which would have happened in the past, or some reason must be there. So when we are able to trace that, then we are able to see that, do we want to keep that feeling? Do we want to keep those thoughts within us, or do we not need it? And then that itself gives you comfort, that you start seeing that, okay, I was thinking all these things which I didn't need to think of. So I was feeling this way, but I didn't need to feel this way.
Yes, correct.
So then naturally, when you are more harmonious inside within yourself, then when you're interacting with the other also, it will be much more comfortable for you, because you would have resolved all the things which were
Things
happening
will fall in
inside
line.
already. Yeah, already things will fall in line.
That clapping sound will not come. One hand is keeping quiet, another hand cannot make noise. So that disharmony will end there.
Yeah, you can start with like this exploration kind of a thing where you keep observing what is going on inside you, and then slowly you see how it impacts all the things which are happening.
Yes, that's what I got little bit doubtful about this competency. That is why competence, complementarity, and this feeling of reverence and gratitude. So I got the clarification. Thank you.
Yeah, the first step would be to work on ourselves only before we start to think about the other, because many times there might be a tendency that we feel that we are okay, but the other is the problem, right? That we might feel that
So nice, Arjun. You are so younger to me, and you are in a position to resolve the issues. So nice.
it happens, right? That many times it happens that we feel like we are because we have a strong assumption about
Yes.
our competence and our intention. We feel that our intention is right. We see the other person's competence and we see that he's lacking competence, and then we connect that with thinking that his intention itself is wrong. So therefore we think that we
Yes.
are in a much higher position to help the other, right? Many times it happens. We should also evaluate our intention and compare it with their intention, not with their competence, because when we look at our competence, ours is also lacking. So
Yes, right.
basically
Thank you.
working on ourselves would be the key to everything else also. Once we understood ourselves, then everything else becomes more and more clear. So all those questions just evaporate once you start seeing that, as we develop more and more clarity of understanding within ourselves, then everything around also, all the other interactions with other human beings also, and with the nature also, with the animals, with everything becomes more harmonious, because once we understand ourselves, it helps to understand everything else also. So here we were seeing that in this existence, only this human being is left. Everything else is in harmony. Only the human being, and in the human being also, only the self, not even the body. The body is already in order, already in harmony. Only the self is not in harmony. There is conflict. So that is the only thing which needs to be fixed. And that can be done with right understanding and right feeling. So when we are able to listen to our natural acceptance and take all our decisions from our natural acceptance, then it will lead to definite human conduct. Like how the physical order, bio order, and animal order have a definite conduct, like that the human being also has a definite conduct. If it is not there, then there is indefinite conduct. So indefinite conduct means that sometimes the human being behaves a certain way, sometimes they behave a different way, and it's all dependent on their assumption at that time. So that becomes more and more of um a problem also for human beings, because they're very dependent on the assumption, and without knowing whatever assumption is happening may be right and may be wrong. So that is always dicey. So that's why indefinite human conduct is the product of the lack of right understanding. So this is the only thing which needs to be fixed, and this has to happen in the self, by the self. This cannot be done any other way, right? Because the self, which is like integral to our existence, that cannot be fixed in any other way. It has to be by the self. So by the self means through the process of self exploration we can do it, through the process of observing our awareness, and then exploring. So to sum up, we can say that existence is in the form of coexistence. It is ever present. And the existence, like we are saying, it's in the form of coexistence, which means that all of the units which are submerged in the space are all, by the virtue of the space, they are energized, and they are how those three characteristics we had mentioned, that they are energized, they are these characteristics we had mentioned over here. These characteristics, these three characteristics, that the units are all energized in space, self-organized in space, and recognize their relationship with every other unit. So the role of the human being, when we see all this, then if we ask why we are reading all this, or why we are trying to understand all this, then we see that the role of the human being is to realize this coexistence, this harmony, this order in the existence, and to see that everything is already in order, all the other, the animal order, the plant order, the bio order, and the all the three orders, except for the human being. The human being is partially in harmony because the body is in harmony, but not the self. So if we are able to see all this, then over a period of time, as we keep exploring, as we keep observing, and draw our awareness towards all these things, then we can start seeing that we are part of this coexistence. And then we live with the feeling of harmony. We live with the feeling that we are a part of this coexistence. On the other hand, when we are living, how someone had mentioned that when we are living with this ego kind of thing, where we are feeling that we are separate from everything else, or we are special, or we are very different from everybody else, then it leads to more and more differentiation, and that leads to the feeling of all those feelings of those ego and jealousy and all those depression, and so many things happen as a side effect of that. But if we are able to see this, that the whole existence is in the form of coexistence, and the human being is also a part of that coexistence, and there's a provision in the existence for living in coexistence, then we can choose to live accordingly. We can choose to be a part of that harmony. So then we don't have to make any extra effort. All we have to do is to understand that all this is inherent, this is innate, this is all already there. It's like if a wheel is rotating, then we just have to, if some vehicle is going, then we just have to hop on to that. Then we'll also reach. So it's something like that. That it's already moving. Everything is already cyclic and everything is already moving. Only the human being is left. Human being without right understanding. That's the only thing which we have to work on. And with that, the other things will become a lot better, because as we understand the harmony and we live in harmony, then all our decisions are taken on the basis of the natural acceptance. So all the decisions, when they're taken on the basis of natural acceptance, then they are good for all. That means they are good for the human being also, they're good for the family also, good for the society, good for nature, good for the entire existence. So that is the power of taking decisions from our natural acceptance, that we are actually doing a lot more than what we are thinking. Like when we are taking all our decisions from our natural acceptance, then we are being a part of this harmony. So we are kind of getting back in line with the harmony or the order which is there in all the other orders in nature. So the harmony in the self is by right understanding in the self, and the content of imagination, when that is guided by the right understanding or guided by our natural acceptance, then it will show up in our behavior and work also. And then there is harmony inside also and outside also. Because when there's right understanding in the self, then all our desires are based on natural acceptance. And therefore, all our thoughts are also based on those desires which we can call correct desires, because they're based on the natural acceptance, means they're good for all. Not just good for ourselves, but good for others also, good for nature also, good for the entire existence. Then obviously, when we have those kind of desires, those kind of thoughts, and they're guided by our natural acceptance or right understanding, then naturally it will show up in our behavior and our work, and we'll take decisions in such a way that it is good for all. And apart from all this, we'll be in happiness also. That's what we always wanted, right? That our basic aspiration was for happiness. And we have tried so many different things in search of that. But if we really want the continuity of happiness, then this can be a path. This is a proposal. You can just take this as a proposal. You don't have to accept it to be true or false. But if you start seeing that happiness is to be in harmony, and when your desires are on the basis of your natural acceptance, then you will be in harmony. So that's all in this session. It got a little bit late, so we'll continue in the next one. In the next one, we won't have any session because the sessions are over, but we can either have sharing from some of the people who are here, or else we can have questions or comments. So that is up to you.
Oh, okay, Arjun. Actually, two hands are raised, so we'll take in the next week.
Yeah, in the next week, we'll focus on the questions, and if anyone wants to share anything also.
All the doubts we have, no, we can, if there are any doubts in the whole content, so we can write down and ask.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay. So now we'll close the meeting because it's almost time. It was a very interesting session, and I think we have come to the end of the whole content, no?
Yeah.
Yes, so it was nice from you. Actually, it was a request from ourselves to start from the beginning, and you have started from the initial, from the first module to the last module. So very much thankful to you. So thank you all the participants also. So we'll see next Wednesday, same time.
Yeah, thank you everyone. If anyone wants to share anything next time,
so nice
to share next time, or they want to ask also, then you can feel free. Next Wednesday we'll do that.
Can I just say, I might be teaching it in future. Many of us might be teaching it in future because it is a start for us. So we need a continuous guidance from you, so will we be getting it in future also always?
Guidance as in like for...
As in these sessions will be like after the question sessions and all, will these sessions be continuing or how it is?
We'll continue again in January, in mid-January, but till then also there'll be something, I think. I'm not sure, but I think there'll be some other sessions on other Wednesdays up to January 15th. This next Wednesday, we'll have this Q&A kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Along with sharing, if anyone wants to share. And then after that, for 3 weekends, I mean, not 3 weekends, 3 Wednesdays, we might have something else. And then again, we'll start from the beginning.
Okay. Okay. So January we'll start from the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, mid-January or so.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Bhaiya. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
So
okay.
we'll close, I think.
We'll close. Namaste to all.
Namaste. Namaste to all.
Thank you, everybody.